Now, in South Africa this week, the spotlight is on the issue of qualified teachers who are jobless. Unofficial statistics in the country show that there are at least 30,000 qualified educators who are either employed or unemployed in another trade, hoping to get a job as a teacher.
The employment gap comes as the Department of Education notes 24,000 vacant teacher posts. And to address this problem, the Unemployed Educators Movement of South Africa has paired up with Build One SA to tackle this issue. Now, the partnership will see the organizations working together to bring national attention to the issue. Now, Joe, this is quite unfortunate, to see what's happening. South Africa has struggled with unemployment on the globe on the larger scale. The reports show that this 30,000, unfortunately, is in just one province in Gauteng. So if we have 30,000 unemployed teachers in just Gauteng, what we then see is an oversaturation of the classes. Now, we have about 70 pupils in one class to one teacher. And it then not only affects the quality of education, it affects the quality of graduates that are being churned out. Now, they had looked into what the underlying issues or underlying causes of this would be. And some of them they found out that it was actually in the process of recruitment, that there's a lot of bribery, corruption that's involved in the process of recruitment. So how can we solve this problem is what we're asking.
It's a big question, Oliver. We'll continue to ask these questions, especially in South Africa, where recruitment of teachers is a problem. Earlier on, sometime last year, you did recall that there was this same movement that was put in place to actually help teachers so they can get the needed basics in order for them to educate the students. But just as you said, corruption has actually been the order of the day. How can you have over 30,000 teachers who are rife for the job, but they are at home? And we hear some of them have taken on other professions just to survive.
And the ones that are then employed, we hear are the unqualified ones. Doesn't that in some way, in a large way, affect the quality of education in South Africa? Let's speak with our guest, who is the Deputy Convener of the Unemployed Educators Movement of South Africa, Moses Ntonyane, to give us more information on the official partnership. Good morning, Moses. Thank you for joining us. Moses, are you there with us? All right, whilst we...
good morning.
Good morning. Moses, let's start with the basics. South Africa's Basic Education Minister, Angie Motshekga, has said that there were 24,000 vacant teacher posts. Why then are there so many teachers unemployed if there are these many vacant posts?
Thank you very much for inviting me and for having me on your show. One, we think that the minister and the department are not appointing unemployed educators primarily because of budget constraints. And they have come up with a number of excuses why they are not appointing these graduate unemployed educators. We had a meeting yesterday, or rather an interview on the radio yesterday with a representative of the department, and he said that they would require qualified educators who do not have the subjects that are required by the department, which are now vacant, to undergo a training process and be trained as educators in the subjects that they need. What do we say as Unemployed Educators Movement of South Africa is that there's no need for someone to go back to for someone to go back to university for 4 years and study mathematics or science, when in fact we have vacancies for educators that are in the specializations they had. And again, we have also recommended to the department that they recommend a pause or a hold on intake of educators with the majors or subjects that are not needed in the country, and only focus on those that are needed. But the department is continuing to create this crisis by not taking the initiative and speaking to the universities. And we know they can. We know that the universities are autonomous, but the universities cannot train people or students for unemployment. And so the department has a prerogative to really say to the universities, stop taking students in accounting, in economics, because we do not need that.
That's a strong one there. But Let's focus on the figures as rightly touted. The 30,000 teachers. Is this a number that has been on the increase, or has it been consistent? We do recall that a few years ago the numbers were not too certain, and now we're hearing 30,000. Your thoughts, please.
You were not very clear there. Can you please?
All right, I'm saying let's focus on the 30,000 teachers. Is this a number that has been on the increase or has been consistent? Has it changed? 30,000 teachers who are unemployed.
Thank you very much. We do think that there's been progress in terms of appointing educators. But in South Africa, when there are a number of vacant posts, the department would release a bulletin wherein those posts are advertised and all educators may apply for them. The last time they did that, they released a bulletin for PL2 educator posts, which is for HODs and above. But they have not yet released a bulletin for PL1 or entry-level educators. And without releasing a bulletin and really looking at appointing as many educators as possible, we will only be appointing less than 1,000 educators a year. And that will create a serious crisis for the Department of Education. And it creates a serious crisis for our members. We think that if the Department of Education at the national level can take responsibility and play an oversight role on the provincial education departments, more progress will be made. Because when we were speaking to the department, they said they have policies in place that are intended to make sure that educators are appointed. But this is not happening because they just leave or dump the policies with the provincial departments, and then they don't follow up. They don't make sure that these provincial departments are acting in accordance with the policies that exist. Another thing that we have noticed as a stumbling block for educators to be appointed is what can lead to corruption. There's a prioritization of educators who were funded by Funza Lushaka when they were studying at universities, which is not consistent because we all go to the database and render our CVs so that we can be considered for available positions. But the department insists that they are prioritizing those who are funded by Funza. So even if you have the measures for subjects they want and you were not funded by Funza, they will not appoint you. And we are saying to the department that this is not fair because you are trying to prioritize people who were historically disadvantaged against people who were also historically disadvantaged, because in majority our teacher education students are funded by NSFAS and not by the Department of Basic Education. And so the budget comes from government also, that comes from the Department of Higher Education through NSFAS. And so we are saying, let this prioritization be stopped and everyone be given an equal opportunity to be appointed by the Department of Education. And also, we have also noticed that the educators who have resigned for this or that reason are also being appointed before those who have not worked before. And the department is giving an excuse to say that these are educators who have specialized skills. We know of educators who are appointed who have the qualifications that our members have. And so how is it that the department does not know that there are people on their database who have the qualifications and subjects that they need, and they are going to appoint people who have resigned from their jobs who must not be prioritized at all?
Okay. All right, so Moses, now we've talked about what some of these reasons are. You've mentioned the budget deficit, corruption, unfortunately, which, of course, there have been conversations about corruption being a part of the intake process, which you have just now confirmed. Now, the question is, with this partnership, what's next? How are we going to resolve these issues? How are we going to ensure that we draw national attention, of course, which is what you're doing by coming on our platform to talk about this. But what other measures will be taken from here to ensure that we do not have this conversation again in another few months?
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if I heard you correctly, but what we intend to do about the situation is to continue conversations with the Department of Basic Education, preferably at the level of provincial departments, but also considering the national department. We have already had an engagement with the national department. They told us that there's not much they can do, but we beg to differ, because if you are leading the department at the national level, there's no way you can tell us that you do not have any influence whatsoever on the provincial government department. And so if you do not have any influence whatsoever, then we do not see the need for the national government to exist if the provinces will do as they please, and then there's no way we can run to if we are not finding joy with how our issues are being addressed. Number two is that we have planned to march to the Department of Basic Education this month at the end of the month, so that we can demonstrate the number of people who are in the streets who need to be employed. We will consider going to court as our final resort, but we intend to engage in good faith with the department in terms of showing them how their lack of urgency is in some way being detrimental to our members. We have been doing our calculations here, really looking at the amount of money that our members are losing by just sitting at home and not being in the classroom teaching learners. Some of our members have been unemployed for more than 2 years, others 4 years, 5 years, and 7 years. And so you see it's a substantive amount that someone would have earned had they been employed and working. Some of them, when we do our calculations, and I'm mentioning this so that the department can see the serious crisis they are causing for our members. Some of them have exceeded 500,000 a long time ago in terms of the salary and benefits. And so we want to assist the department in terms of maybe refining their program, or rather their strategy for recruitment, so that they can be quicker in recruiting members, or rather educators. And this will assist not only the educators who are unemployed, but it will also assist the schools, because you see in the schools there are teachers who are teaching more than 70 learners. And in our view, it is almost impossible to deliver a quality lesson to 70 learners. Because you see, when you have 70 learners and all of them have consents, it's impossible for you to attend to those consents in a week, in a month, or in a year.
Moses and Toyani, these are such very great plans that you have, and we totally agree with you that it's impossible to give quality when you have 70 students in a class. And we do hope that it doesn't get to the level of the court and you're able to resolve this amicably. Thank you, Moses and Toyani, for joining us this morning.